Hi, this is William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Mark. I'm so glad you're here. We've just gotten through with the amazing transfiguration where Christ has unveiled his heavenly glory before his closest disciples. We now come to some sort of time interval and location interval. We're not sure. This is a pretty dynamic miracle, and we'll pick up the text in verse 14. When he came to his disciples, otherwise Christ, he saw a great multitude around them, and the scribes were questioning him. I will summarize here a little bit for time's sake. And they were amazed and came to Christ and running and greeted him. So something had stirred them up. And he asked the scribes, Christ, what are you questioning the disciples about? And one of the multitude said, Master, I brought my son with a dumb spirit, otherwise demon possessed, and I won't describe this, but describes in pretty detail how tormented his son was. It's a terrible picture. And said he asked his disciples to cast him out, the demon, and they could not. Christ responds, perhaps a bit of a surprising way, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I tolerate you? The word suffer here really means allow, tolerate. Why did he say this? Well, as we know, Christ came to save his people and bring in the promised kingdom. The leadership rejected him, it seemed right away, and probably most of the people were really in unbelief. I think Christ is sensing among the people in their tumult is not an attitude of faith. They're questioning the disciples, doubting them, perhaps doubting God. Why can't this kid be healed, who is obviously troubled? And Christ confronts them on their lack of faith. And he brought the child to him. He saw him straight away. The spirit was tearing at him basically. And he fell on the ground, wallowing and foaming. Again, a terrible scene for this child. And he asked his father how long ago since he's come upon him. And he said, of a child, so obviously a while. And he described again the terrible things he would do to himself in mutilation. Christ said, if you can't believe, all things are possible for him who believe. Otherwise, there's no limitation in what belief can do. And he cried out. He said, with tears, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. A reasonably famous line. Christ said, deaf and dumb spirit, I charge thee, come out of him and enter into him no more. And yes, he came out and left the child. Jesus took the child by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. So the disciples asked him, why could we not cast him out? Christ had already, I think, rebuked his disciples for the lack of faith, said kindly, this sort can come forth by nothing but prayer and fasting. So Christ recognized perhaps the difficulty of obviously a very mean spirit in this child, maybe meaner than most, and his earnestness and the needed extra earnestness in casting him out. Now, fasting is not in all the manuscripts. It's not in the earliest manuscripts. It only came there later. Whether Christ said it or not, he's not commanding people fast. We know in Scripture that really the only command to fast was on the Day of Atonement back in Leviticus, the once-a-year feast for the forgiveness of sins. The church is not told to fast. Fasting represents perhaps an earnestness, an extra care in prayer and beseeching God. And so if it was in the text, it's, I think, in that context. Okay, so what do we learn? We've seen another miracle. Christ is presenting himself as having authority over the demons, and that He is Messiah. He is God. Again, we see the faithlessness of the people following him. Surely there were true believers among them, but apparently at this point, there's a vast horde of unbelievers who are there for show. Perhaps they were there just for this kid locally and knew him locally. We were unsure from where they came, but they were beset by unbelief. Christ has compassion on the child, showing his messiahship as well, and cast out the demon. Again, we see Satan trying to thwart his ministry, but you've also noticed that the demons have shut up in terms of calling him Christ, like Christ directed. And that method by the demons to associate themselves with Christ didn't work. Okay, thanks for joining me today. We'll continue with this final journey of Christ heading towards Jerusalem next time. Please join me then.